Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. Today's image was submitted by Seth, who is a beginning photographer from Florida. Seth says he shot this image of this little girl at a wedding. This little girl was sitting with her mother directly in front of him. He said he really liked how this image sort of showed a combination of curiosity and shyness. He shot this with a Nikon Coolpix, and he exposed the file at f/4 for 1/60th of a second. Seth says he's already made some adjustments in Photoshop and just wonders if there's anything else that can be done to the picture to possibly improve it. I really like this moment a lot too, and I really get what Seth is talking about in terms of the backstory. I really get the idea of a little girl on her mother's shoulder, potentially shy. Shooting this moment with just the one eye really helps to sort of communicate that idea. The other thing that I really like about this image is the fact that Seth has come in here really tight and has unconventionally cropped on the mother. So there's just enough here, particularly here and with the hair and with the bow, to suggest the idea of feminine versus masculine and to suggest mother without this becoming a dominant idea. And I just cannot overemphasize the power of unconventional cropping and doing so to leave part of the story to the imagination of the viewer. It's very powerful on two levels. Number one, it just makes our life more simple from a design standpoint. The more stuff we include, and not only the more stuff or more subjects, but the more we get the whole subject. So now it's not just the positive space shape of the subject that we have to deal with. From a design standpoint, we now are going to have to deal with negative space around the subject, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. So not only do we cut down on the number of ideas and cut down on new ideas that might pull the eye out of the frame, we also let the viewer of our images start to co-create a story with us. And so much of the time, whatever the viewer is going to make up, if they stay with an image long enough, I just realized I got an eyeball on here that I don't want to have on, but it doesn't really make much of a difference. Anyway, the more stuff they make up, the more they're going to engage the picture. And if they're making things up, that means that they've probably spent some time with the image. And this image has a real classical layout that we could talk about. The eye of the little girl is definitely one of the main subjects, and it's in a dynamic place on the image. It's on one of the vertical thirds and in this rectangularly framed image. I think that's really powerful. There's also some beautiful qualities of line here that are real easy to appreciate from a classical design standpoint. You got this movement of line, starts with the shoulder, picks up with the bow, and ends up in this corner, and that's real powerful on one of the diagonals. And you get a fairly strong sense of movement along this diagonal just because the head is tilted here and the eye is sort of mimicking the plane of that diagonal. So you definitely, even though on this diagonal here it's subtle, you definitely get a sense of cross-hatching energies, and that can work really well. There's some nice balancing touches here too. This flattens out a little bit over here. You have sort of the same tone that plays over here, but it's dynamic. You have less of sort of this flattening out of texture and of quality of line than you have in this part of the image. And even though this is flat, it's nice that it's a pretty slender space shape. I just really am enjoying how this can play off of the idea of this over here, and then it's implied again, even though in a very, very subtle way, by this seam or stitch in the mother's dress. And that's a very powerful bit of sort of rhythm along the diagonal. You get a real strong sense of that here with the ruffle and then the hair. These kinds of things moving on the diagonal can really be important. Yesterday I talked about when we're looking at balance, top to bottom, left to right, and then diagonal to diagonal, in the camera. And the more you sort of train your eye to do this, the more your subconscious will start to pick up on this. If you're trying to photograph beautiful things beautifully, it's just a real sort of simple basic balancing checklist that you can go through in your mind. Obviously there's a lot more to balance than just that. When I look at this image, I think this is a great subject matter. It's been framed in a great way, great camera position, great moment. What is it missing? Light. And when it comes to light, it's just flat as a pancake. You get a sense of light coming from this direction. But overall, there's a little bit of a highlight over here. Maybe there's a window in the church or space where the marriage is taking place. Overall, the light over here just really flattens out. And that does several different things to this image. One of the things that it does is it cuts down on a layer of movement or a layer of story that could make the image more dynamic. And if the lighting was sort of congruent with the main idea, which to me is sort of this, then it could enhance the main idea and the image. The other thing that it does is it starts to give equal weight to a lot of different things in the image, and we sort of look and take it all in and then move away. And the other thing about lighting, and this is just it's one of these sort of intangibles. We are beings of light, and we depend on light. I mean, for everything. It's sort of the starting point of everything. And we have so many emotional connections to light and to the idea of light and dark and flow of light. And it's just critically important to photography. One of the neat things about this being a black and white image is that we can sort of create a lighting effect that would be much harder to do in colors, whereas we start to change value. Colors are mutually dependent on each other, and it can become a lot more complicated. That's the main thing that I would do to this image. What I would do is I would look and I would say, it looks like there's a flow of light coming from here. Let me create more of a feeling of a brighter light, and I create sort of a fake specular highlight here, and create more of a feeling of light flowing into the eye and then fanning out on the dress here, so that we get another layer of movement. We get some more contrast to make this more dynamic. And I just sort of did this in an intuitive way. I just did it with multiple layers. Didn't try to do it all in one fell swoop. I made a curves adjustment first to increase local contrast, and what you're basically seeing me do there is paint in areas that are already getting some specularity. So in other words, I want to sort of mimic the possible flow of light in the shot. And then the next thing that I did was really sort of pumped up this feeling of a light coming from the window on the left side. And that first move was just sort of biasing, but again, remember, I just sort of started to go down the road of working on this. No set way in my mind to do it, except to think about maybe biasing what's already bright and pushing the light in a direction where it looks like it could potentially go, is already going. And now I'm going to sort of darken all the way around that to make that lighting pattern seem even more dramatic. I'm going to add some low end, and I've done that right in here a good bit to create some movement there to sort of push back against this contrast that we're getting here, and to slow the eye down with some of these blacks. You'll see that right along the edge of where the hairline meets the scarf there, and then I pushed even more in terms of local contrast. If you just saw this by itself, you wouldn't question it. I don't think you'd question this at all. If you go back to the beginning and look at the difference, then you might go, well, wait a minute, this is unrealistic. But the thing is, without a reference point, this could be pretty strong window light or even a little bit of direct light coming in and creating this lighting effect. The other thing that it's done for the image, at least to my eye, is it's allowed us to create a much heavier shadow right in here, which has helped to cut down on an area of the image that when I first looked at this image felt a little bit awkward. That big flat space shape where you don't see the other eye at all really almost started to make this feel unnatural. And by creating the lighting effect, we're able to take that area over there, create a lot more movement, a lot more contrast, and actually imply the eye in a way, but just cut down on so much negative space so we don't feel like we need something there to complete that part of the image. A really beautiful shot by Seth to begin with, but one of the things I'd really encourage you to think about is to sort of start with light. I do that so much of the time when I'm doing my photography, particularly of people. I'll look for where the light is, and then I'll move into that space, and then talk to people and get them to come into beautiful light, or watch them as they move through beautiful light. And then if I need to, I know that I can push subtle qualities of light and create more dramatic lighting effects in Photoshop. And here you can see that we've just done it with curves and levels adjustments, adjustment layers, and we've done it by making local adjustments to the mask with the brush, and 0% hardness on the brush, just changing the size of the brush to make the movement either more of a subtle or something that's more of a fine edge adjustment, but always at 0 hardness. Love this image from Seth. Really beautiful portrait. I want to say a big thank you to Seth for sharing this image with us on the Mindful Eyes Daily Critique.